Kara Shalom, welcome to our watercolor journey. Today we are painting an easy landscape with rain in the valley and a lone tree on a hill. We are painting on Potentate Rough 100% cotton, a very durable and quite affordable paper. Our brushes are a Hwahong No. 1 Hake, Silver Black Velvet No. 12 and No. 8 Round, and a Rosemary & Company No. 0 Sable Blend Rigger. On the palette, we have burnt umber, ultramarine and yellow ochre. With the burnt umber and ultramarine, we will make a blue-gray where you add more ultramarine, and then a brown where you add more burnt umber. With the yellow ochre and ultramarine, you will get a nice natural-looking green. We call colors like burnt umber and yellow ochre earthies. When used with the blues, the two pigments create lovely earthy shades of brown and green, which will give your landscape a fresh, natural look. The Potentate paper is taped to a block, which is at an angle of about 45 degrees. We placed it on a lever arch file to give it a sturdy base and a nice slope. There's a very basic sketch of two overlapping hills and a tree. This is just to give you an idea of where to add your background washes. Wet the entire paper thoroughly with a hake and spread the water evenly so that there are no puddles. Use a large brush and the blue-gray to start the sky. The area is very wet, so the paint will flow and mix on the paper quite easily. Use a variety of brush strokes to give your sky the effect of a dark, stormy sky. Add touches of ultramarine to vary the depth of the sky. Don't fiddle with the paint too much. You can gradually add more pigment to the top of the page to feed the paint that flows down towards the horizon. The sky is usually darkest at the top and gradually becomes lighter towards the horizon. This will give you the illusion of distance. Again, don't fiddle too much, especially towards the middle line, as you want the paint to flow down in streaks to resemble the rain falling. Rinse the brush, then pick up some burnt umber and start with the foreground. You will find that sometimes the colors run down the tape, and in this case it can work in our favor. Pick up these colors and wipe them lightly with diagonal brush strokes into the foreground. This will tie your sky and your foreground together nicely. Add a touch of yellow ochre for variation and light. Notice that here also, just as in the sky, the pigment is added to the top part of the foreground near the horizon line. You are feeding the pigment to help it flow and blend towards the bottom. You can add more brown and yellow ochre to enhance the color of the hills. Add a few dabs of the green mix here and there, and then leave it to blend. Use a paper towel to soak up the water at the bottom of the paper. Allow the painting to dry thoroughly. A hairdryer is not recommended here, as the paint needs to flow and blend and settle on its own to get the desired effect. A hairdryer might blow the wet pigments in all directions, which will disturb the flow. You can now use a smaller brush if you like to add a thin line of ultramarine to the top of the hill on the left. Then use water to soften the bottom edge of the ultramarine line. It will create a hard edge at the top of the mountain, but because the color is pale blue, it will recede. Then use some of the darker gray to add the top line of the hill on the right. Use some water again to soften this line and to bring it down towards the left-hand corner. In this way, you create a distinction between the two hills. The light, open sky in the middle, together with the V shape of the hills, will draw the viewer's eye into the painting. Use the browns and the yellow ochre to create a patch of grass in the left-hand corner. Dab the colors in and allow them to blend. Spread the colors lightly towards the right, but don't let them go beyond the ridge line. You want to create a hard line here for the grass stalks later. This hard line creates a greater distance between the hill on the left and the foot of your hill in the front. Use the belly of the brush and some of the brown to do some dry brushing to create more texture in your foreground. To add a bit of vegetation at the top of the hill, you can use the green, burnt umber and a touch of brown. Use the tip of the brush here, as you don't want anything definitive. These bushes are only suggestions, so simply dab in the colors on top of each other. Add a bit of the dark gray for shadows. Enhance the foot of the hill with some more of the browns. You want this corner to stand out a bit, as it will have to carry the tree that you will add just off center on the hilltop. Use the brown mix to paint your tree. Take your time and build the trunk and branches with the colors on your palette. The tree needs to be a bit more detailed, as it is the focus point of your painting. Make some branches lighter and some darker to give your tree dimension. If you find it difficult to create it with a normal brush, you can also use a rigger. Riggers are ideal for painting tree branches. Then use the tip of the rigger and some of the green and the yellow ochre to add the foliage to the left. The light is coming from the left, so these leaves are lighter in color. Add a bit of the darker color to the middle and then move to the right of the tree. Now you can use the bigger brush again and add your colors. Then use some water to blend the colors on this side. Add a bit more ultramarine here to give the tree a more distinct shadow side. You will notice that the foliage on the left is more distinct with hard lines and clear open patches where the sky shines through. On the right, the foliage is blended a bit more and there are more soft edges. This gives your tree dimension and makes it look more natural. If necessary, you can add a bit more ultramarine to the bushes below the tree to enhance the shadows. As I said, our light is coming from the top left, so the shadow of the tree will fall into the right-hand corner. Draw a light dark line to give you a sense of direction, and then blend the gray with a touch of brown into a faint shape of a tree. Keep your touch very light here. Use a bit of water to soften the paint, as you don't want a prominent blob. Leave a speck of light here and there, as the foliage on the left isn't very dense, so the light will shine through. You want that to show in your shadow. Shadows are quite difficult to paint, but they are very interesting. They are sometimes quite the opposite of what you'd expect them to look like. They are also never just black. They reflect and absorb the light and colors from their surroundings. The next time you sit outside, take a moment to really study the shadows around you. Try to determine which colors they really are. You will be surprised to see that shadows on green grass are just a darker shade of green, and sometimes the shadows from a white wall will have a violet color. The colors at the foot of the hill have dried now, so you can add the grass stalks. To help direct the viewer's eye, you can draw them in an arc towards the tree. Vary the shape, thickness and color of these stalks. Start with your lightest color and then add a few strokes of darker colors as you go. The distinct grass stalks stand out clearly against the soft, light background of the hill on the left. They create immediate distance because of the hard lines and the counterchange, the light against dark. Variation in tones and values help to give your painting depth and dimension. The earth tones help to keep it natural. Experiment with different blues mixed with yellow ochre or raw sienna to find some of the most natural, beautiful greens you can imagine. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon. Vaya con Dios.